Salutations, Imperial citizens and battle brothers. It's Brother Tobias, and this is a very spontaneous stream for the balanced Dataslate. And finally, the news drop. And the news we've all been waiting for: Warhammer 40k has been updated, and I will talk about it because it is pretty interesting. So here's the Warhammer community article going over the meta watch, what the percentages are. You can watch that by yourself, where Stu and the other designers explain some of the things that happen. Here you can go for the points and the rules, which is pretty neat. Down here, they make a special note that the Dark Eldar got a brand new index, basically. They got a new detachment, new rules, and a buff to one of their existing rules, which is very good for them. Next, we get some explanations of what happens and why it happens. So indirect fire units have gotten more expensive. Battle line units have gotten a bit cheaper across the board. Not with every faction, but with some of them. And this is something I will highlight as we go along. I will not be reviewing the entire data slate. I will only be talking about Ultramarines and the things that are particularly noteworthy to Ultramarines. So next, I want to give a big shout out to Games Workshop for this data slate, because they have done something really, really good. They have added a little plus symbol to indicate what is a new change in the data slate compared to the last one. So it is really easy to pinpoint which changes have been made. And I like that a lot. There's also something in the points part where they have decided to... Where the points... For example, they have decided to highlight things that got cheaper in green and things that got more expensive in red. And this is an amazing little thing. The only... And there's a little arrow indicating it too. The only thing I would have liked is if Games Workshop had decided, well, just write the number of how many points it went up, maybe up top next to the arrow. If it said like +5 or something, then you could easily infer how much the price got increased. But yeah. So here we go. Dark Angels points will not be up to date because officially the codex is not out. So we are getting a new Monitorum field manual probably next week when the Dark Angels supplement releases properly. We get some of the current win rates. And then we get a rules commentary, including some much needed FAQ. Rules to the game. Salutations, Ilo-san. Thank you for watching. So first we go into the actual data slate. So those are the rules that have officially changed the game. And this first page is nothing new. All of this is what happened in September last year. Which is good, because all of these changes were reasonable to some extent. I think this one, modifying the CP, is something we could revert completely. I think free stratagems are not a problem at all. And we are seeing some problems here. Because a lot of the codex books that have come out by this point were not written with this in mind. So what this change did is you can only use abilities that make stratagems free or cheaper on battle tactic stratagems, which is a category of stratagem. In order to do that, you have to look through all of your stratagems and then read up on which ones are battle tactics and which ones are not. Now, some of the codex books that have come out, like the Necron Codex and the AdMech Codex, they have some detachment with 0 battle tactic stratagems in them. And that's bad, because now these factions can't use their rules to make stratagems free. Because it wasn't written with this kind of band-aid in mind. And I think we could completely revert this, or at least change it to something. My favorite thing would be to replace all of the rules that make a stratagem free with rules that make the stratagem cheaper by 1 command point. So you can't make a stratagem that's 2 command points free, it would cost 1. And a stratagem that costs 1 command point would be free. I think that would be completely fine. So, in we go to the rules. Again, this is an Ultramarine review. I will only go on rules that are going to affect us in some way. So Robotus got a slight nerf to one of their combos. I don't think it's very important. Custodes got their Feel No Pain against Devastating Wounds back. That means units like Sternguard Veterans, Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and Robute Gilliman will be a lot worse against Custodes. Other than that, Custodes have gotten a lot of point drops, so they will be a faction that you are going to see a lot. So keep a lookout for your codex for units with AP 2 and 3 or 4 multi-damage. 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage. And ignore cover, because you will need them, because Custodes are back. Eldar. This one is really important. Eldar lost half of their fate dice. So previously, before the game began, Eldar rolled 12 dice, and then they could re-roll them -1 die. And those dice, they would write down, and then they could use those results they rolled at the beginning as substitutions for rolls they would make during the game. Yes, and now they get 6. Now they got 6. Should I zoom in a little bit? Maybe I should zoom in a little bit. I'm pretty sure on full screen it's really readable here. Next, one of the enhancements. So Eldar will have less fate dice. They will have 6, and they might have to actually bring some of their units that generate fate dice, something like Guardians or the Wraith Lord. Next, the Fates Messenger enhancement was changed so that only the bearer can change a hit roll, wound roll, or saving roll to a 6 every turn. That means you can't attach a leader to a unit and then automatically use a 6 on the unit to do something, like trigger a devastating wound or something like that. Really useful. That means this will probably not see play anymore, only on an Autarch. Phantasm was changed, so this is the big one. Phantasm can only target infantry, as before, as with the first nerf, but now it is changed to a D6-inch move. It was previously a 7-inch move. So now there is a very realistic chance that an Eldar unit will fail an attempt to move behind a wall. And this is amazing. This right here is the backbreaker. You can finally interact with an Eldar army. They will use this stratagem when they're desperate, or when they are about to, they just want to increase their threat range in your turn against you. This is an excellent nerf, and this will make playing against Eldar much easier. Night Spinners no longer prevent you from advancing, and they also went up 30 points. They went from 180 to 210. That's a lot of points. I don't think we are going to see 3 Night Spinners anymore, but we might still see 1 or 2. I think 1 Night Spinner is still really good as a tech piece, but I don't think we are going to see 3 Night Spinners, because that's 300 and... No, that's 210. That's 630 points for 3 models. That's way too much. I don't think they are going to use that anymore. Yeah, it is now replaced with you get -2 to move and charge and advances. Which is still very annoying because you get slowed down, but you can finally advance. Salutations, Grim. Subtract 2 from charge didn't exist. You are completely right. in a way, because this is an Eldar Salutations Lytra. So in a way, Eldar got buffed in their nerfs, as usual, but I will not be salty about this because you can advance and charge. The biggest problem before with the Night Spinner was it said you can't charge, which means anything like assault and advance and charge got completely shut down by Night Spinners, and this is no longer possible. It can still happen if you just don't roll very high. If you roll a 1 or 2, you effectively didn't advance, but you can still charge if you have a rule that allows you to advance and charge. So very good. And the other two important ones, the Incarn can only teleport during the Eldar player's turn. So the Eldar will kill something, the Incarn will jump in, and then the Incarn can charge you and mess up your day. But if you kill an Eldar unit on the other end of the table in your turn, the Incarn can't suddenly jump away. So now if the Incarn is jumping right into your army, it stays there, and you can deal with your opponent's army and the Incarn in the same turn. Next, Wraithguard. Wraithguard can only shoot back if you shoot them. Let's start over. Wraithguard has a rule: if you shoot the Wraithguard can shoot back. Previously, the Wraithguard could shoot at any unit it can see when you shot it. Now it has to shoot at the same unit that just shot it. So you can now set up a turn in which you see the Wraithguard with 2 units, and you shoot it with Unit A, and then Unit B can also shoot it because the Wraithguard won't just kill Unit B. It might still kill Unit A, but that's what you signed up for. This will seriously nerf Eldar, and that's good for us, because nerfing Eldar is important. Grim, just in case you didn't hear it, we are only really reviewing the Dataslate in the context of Ultramarines, so I will only go over the other factions if they have relevance to our matchups in any way. For example, like Chaos Demons. Chaos Demons are used as allies in other Chaos armies. Now, in order to use a demon ally, you have to bring a demon battle line unit from the same god. So if you want to ally in the Changeling, you would have to bring a Zinj battle line unit in addition. That means a lot of Chaos armies will no longer have a lone op. Chaos Knights will most likely not have a Changeling or the Blue Scribes in their lists, which is good for us, I think, because it takes away some of our need to pressure their backfield. Chaos Space Marines. Now this is important because I also play Chaos Space Marines, and these changes are substantial. I am not as doom and gloom about them as the Chaos Space Marine players. I still think Chaos Space Marines are just strong. But let's start out. We have 2 changes to the Nurgle Rhinos. You cannot embark on a transport that isn't the same Mark of Chaos as the unit inside. This is much needed. In addition to, the Nurgle stratagem was changed from... The Nurgle stratagem was changed from outside of 12 inches you can't shoot to outside of 18 inches you can't shoot. This is very good because now you can maybe skip your Eradicators. You might not need them anymore to pop the Rhinos. Maybe you still want to pop Rhinos because transports are really good, but this will help a lot. And units in Nurgle Rhinos are not good in combat because they're Nurgle units. Nurgle units are good at shooting, and if you have a Nurgle Rhino, you don't have a Nurgle unit inside. Now, don't let this confuse you or bait you into a small sense of security, because transports are still good, even if they can be shot. You can still put a Rhino behind a wall like a normal person. It will still be good. Accursed Cultists got down to OC1, and they only regenerate in the Chaos player's command phase instead of every command phase. That makes the Accursed Cultists easier to handle. Personally, as a Space Marine player, Accursed Cultists were always fine. We have excellent units to get rid of Accursed Cultists. The Gladius, Aggressor Bomb, and the Devastator Centurions. Both of these got more expensive, but both of these can easily pick up 20 Accursed Cultists in one shooting phase. So this is just a good thing to make them less annoying, especially if your opponent takes 3 blocks of them. Good change for the rest of the game because a lot of factions could not handle Accursed Cultists. Profane Zeal got changed. It is now only rerolling the wound roll instead of the hit roll, and you can no longer use it on units that are not undivided. So previously you could use it to get reroll once to hit and wound on a Nurgle unit or a Khorne unit. Doesn't work anymore. Now you can only use it on undivided units and you only get the wound roll. This makes the Lord with Chosen package less reliable because they go from a 100% hit rate to a, I want to say, 75% hit rate, I think, because they still have sustained hits and stuff. But yeah, they will still do damage. Reroll wounds is good. They still reroll once to hit, so every 2 is a miss now. It doesn't affect Terminators or Abaddon because both of these have hit rolls to wound, so that's fine. And yeah, I think that's okay. Chaos Space Marines got hit by the points pretty hard. So this is a matchup we don't have to live in fear. I think Eldar were a pretty good matchup for my Space Marine list. It wasn't good for other Space Marine lists, and Chaos Space Marines were terrible for Space Marines. Everything we did, they just did better, and that's good for the Ultramarines. So great that we have this. Anything else we have to talk about? Not really. I guess it is fair to say Imperial Knights didn't really change. World Eaters got giga nerfed. Yes, Mortarion now counters Armor of Contempt. Very good call, Grim. Yes. In exchange, you will no longer get 12 mortal wounds thrown at you, because you can now only use the Biologus Putrefier for a free grenade stratagem once per turn. That means you can't disembark with 4 of them and throw 4 grenades for free. So it doesn't work anymore. So you're getting less grenades from the Death Guard, but Mortarion gets a bit better against Armor of Contempt and gives it as an aura to the Death Guard. So be careful with your Terminators and your Centurions against melee Plague Marines and potential Deep Strikes. World Eaters got a lot of changes, points, and 3 of their rules got worse. I will summarize this with World Eaters got destroyed. Don't worry about this matchup anymore. World Eaters are in a tough spot. They got obliterated. Their list went up by, I think, 150 points. And they lost 2 of their most important rules. One making the Berserker Glaive Master of Executions kill anything in the game with Fight First, and the other one being able to fish for a revive on Angron every single turn with a reroll. Only works once per battle now, so that's fine. And it's not fine for World Eaters. I have a bunch of World Eaters right here on my desk. I wanted to start the army. I think I will be throwing all of those boxes on the cupboard, and I will take care of that later on. So, the most important and sad thing for Space Marines, Desolation Marines are still locked to 5 models. I would have liked Desolation Marines to get back to 10s, because it would give people playing the Vanguard who don't want to buy Centurions an option for the army, because the closest thing to Centurions are probably Desolation Marines, but overall, the most important thing for Ultramarines is that's it. We did not get nerfed in the Dataslate. Now, we took a big hit in the points. Let's go to Space Marines. Aggressors went up by 10 points per 3. So 20 points on the brick. Inceptors went up by 20 points per 3. And Centurions went up by 20 points per 6. So 10 per 3. Redemptor Dreadnoughts went up. And that's bad news for the Gladius and potentially the Ironstorm. The Whirlwind went up to 180. The Whirlwind is unplayable. Do not play the Whirlwind anymore. Not even one, because you want to battle shock something. You don't play the Whirlwind. Bad dog, do not do it. The Whirlwind is out. Scouts went to 65, which is completely reasonable. I agree with this. Scouts were too cheap. And they're still good. You would still take 3 units of Scouts if you have space in your list. Now, the things that got cheaper are almost worthless, in my opinion. Games Workshop did a really baffling thing, because Intercessors got cheaper. I think Intercessors are really bad. Assault Intercessors got cheaper, which is fine. I think they're okay. Heavy Intercessors got cheaper. This one might be interesting. I did some testing with Heavy Intercessors, and I did not like them. But they're not bad. The Outriders got cheaper, which is worthless. And Sternguard got cheaper, and it's also worthless because Sternguard is bad. Unusably bad. I would rather have a Whirlwind than 10 Sternguard veterans. And I don't want a Whirlwind either. So here we go. The only important ones that did change, in my opinion, are Robute Gilliman went down by 10 points, which is not awesome, but I think it's at least something. It helps. It almost pays for the nerf we got on the aggressors if you play a Gladius. If you play my YouTube list, you are plus 10 points. And actually, one of the stealth ones. Up here. Infernus Marines going down 5 points. I think this might actually be good in the Salamander's Firestorm list. Because there you can get the reroll wounds with Vulcan and then fish for death wounds. And 10 Infernus Marines have pretty high output, and I think they're pretty cheap. I don't think it's good enough to just throw them in an Ultramarine detachment, but I think it's fine. So yeah, here we are at the points. So what do I think about the points for Space Marines? I have been playing a lot of Vanguard. I went to 2 RTTs with the John Lennon list, and I went undefeated in both. The list is really, really, really good, and I think it will still be good. But you have to make an adjustment to the Vanguard. Oh, and just in case you were asking yourself, the Calidus Assassin did not go down. The Calidus Assassin is still 90 points because Games Workshop did not do their job at all. So the Calidus Assassin is still the best lone op in the game. Potentially. Or at least one of the best. But it will still be in mostly any Imperium army that has 90 points to spare. Because she is ridiculously good. So now, I think the Vanguard list was very good. I think it got hit a bit too hard, but I agree it needed to be hit. I think Inceptors at 110 were too cheap. Inceptors needed to go up. Centurions didn't go up, but I will be honest, I'm taking a price hike on Centurions over losing the Deep Strike interaction with Uriel Ventris. I would rather have the Deep Strike interaction than than have a cheaper Centurion unit that can't use the rule anymore. So that's good. How do we adjust to these changes? I think unless you have a detachment that has a good reason to take 6 Inceptors, you might go down to 3. Maybe you take 2 times 3 just for scoring. Maybe you take 1 3 and 1 6. 1 for scoring, 1 for damage. You need a good damage buff like the Firestorm or the Vanguard, or honestly even the Gladius with what's it called? Storm of Fire? Yeah. Something like that. You need a good damage buff to make Inceptors good. They're still really good. But you shouldn't take 15 maybe. And if you do, you have to cut other things. I think aggressors will stay right where they are. It's annoying they went up 20 points, but I think you still want aggressors. Now, I don't want to spoil it because it's membership content, but John Lennon has experimented with taking the aggressors out and taking a different unit instead. If you are interested in that, go to the Art of War. But I personally, I would rather take Inceptors out than take aggressors out. And the way I will fix, quote unquote, fix my Vanguard list, I will most likely cut 3 Inceptors, cut the 3 Plasma Inceptors, take the Bolters to 2 3s instead of 1 6, and then cut the Calidus Assassin, and that leaves us with enough points to upgrade one of the 3 Scout units to an Infiltrator unit, which will be important because the most important thing in this data slate is actually not in the data slate. Because if I go Control F Necrons, there is nothing. No results. And if I go here for Necrons, there is no change. This is bad news. Necrons will by far be the best army, I think. There are some arguments that maybe Custodes are the best army. Maybe it's Black Templar, Gladius, because Sword Brethren did not go down. But Necrons are a problem. You need to have a game plan for Necrons. Especially because we got a second indirect nerf over in the designer's commentary. So here's a good little thing. The rules commentary got put up to version 1.2. It clarifies that ignoring modifiers now ignores Armor of Contempt and -1 damage. Which is bad for us, in my opinion, because we don't have any ignore modifiers, but we have Armor of Contempt and -1 damage. So be careful of Mortarion, Trajan Valoris, the Grey Knight, Grandmaster, models like that. Dangerous. Now, important things that changed. We have a rule on objective markers. Can I Control F? Here we go. Control of objective markers. Now, here we go. Objective secured, or otherwise known as sticky objectives. Let's zoom in on this, because this is important. This right here. Various abilities allow you to retain control of an objective marker even if you have no models within range of it. Regardless of how these rules are worded, control of objective markers is determined at the end of each phase and turn. See Core Rules Errata. So while you retain control of an objective marker affected by this ability, even if you have no models within range, at the end of a phase or turn, your opponent can gain control of the objective marker if their level of control over it is greater than yours. This means explicitly if your opponent walks onto a sticky objective and dies, they now control the objective at the end of the phase. So if they walk on the objective and you charge them with heroic intervention. Yeah, a much needed intercessor nerf. This is bad for the Vanguard and good for Necrons. Because there is a strategy you could use where previously you could use the stratagem. I forgot what it's called. Something price. You could make a objective sticky with the Vanguard. And if you made an objective in No Man's Land sticky, the Necrons could not capture it for one movement phase. Or one turn. Which means you could prevent the Canoptic Cord from getting full rerolls to hit against you. If you played your cards right. This is no longer possible. So be on the lookout for your opponent walking on sticky objectives, because it's not going to be pretty. So this is helping Necrons against us in a minor interactive way, but it's important. Now, is there anything else here I needed to mention that is different? You can now use Infiltrate if you redeploy, which is pretty good. So the Phobos Captain might be a bit more interesting. Splitting units, whatever. I don't think anything else important. And I would like to talk about Dark Eldar, because this might be a really, really strong army to play against now. Dark Eldar got a significant buff. When Dark Eldar used their pain tokens, they used to be able to gain 2 effects. If they use a pain token and they generate these by killing you and making you battle shocked, Dark Eldar could spend them to reroll advances or charges, and they could spend them in the fight or shooting phase to get rerolls to hit in shooting or fighting. And they spend 1 token for 1 unit, and then that unit has the rerolls. In addition, if Dark Eldar use a pain token in melee, they now gain +1 AP. That's really good. Suddenly, Incubi go to AP3, Witches go to AP2. That's a substantial buff. And in addition to that, they can finally drop their awful detachment and play their new detachment. Look at this. The Sky Splinter Assault. So Dark Eldar disembarking from a transport until the end of the turn have the Ignores Cover and Lance ability. That means if Dark Eldar get out of a transport and charge you, they will have +1 to wound, and if they shoot you, they ignore cover. That's a pretty big damage buff, because that's essentially +1 AP to all of their lances and blasters, which means if they jump out of a transport, they can shoot you. And then they have a bunch of interactions. I just want to highlight a few of them, where they can charge you out of transports and then get back into the transport. They can also charge you with a transport and then do mortal wounds. They can give one of their transports a 4-up invulnerable save, and if you charge a transport, the transport can move 6 inches away. It's really good stuff, and I think you need to be careful of this. That said, Dark Eldar still have really bad units. So just be aware, these bad units now have really good rules on top of being bad units. So I think Dark Eldar are a real army now. So, this will be the closing statement. Been talking for a bit. Space Marines got hit, but I think it's fine. I don't think it's that bad, but we need to make cuts in the lists. The Gladius probably loses some amount of flexibility in the list design. You probably cut a character, and you could now consider taking Hellblasters over Aggressors. I'm against it because everyone knows I don't like Hellblasters very much, but at a 10-point difference, it is a lot closer than at a 30-point difference. So, good for you, Hellblasters. Inceptors are still really good. I don't know if you still take 15. Maybe you take 6. And if you really want to use them, 12. But I think 15 is too much now. And Centurions will stay in the Vanguard. They're only good in the Vanguard. If you play the Iron Storm, focus on tanks instead of Dreadnoughts. Take the Gladiators, take the Vindicator, and don't rely on the Redemptor Dreadnought too much, because now it's expensive. Don't take 3, only take 2. If you take any, take 2, not 3. Maybe take the Brutalis Dreadnought instead, just because it's so much cheaper. It's 50 points cheaper. But I think overall, Ultramarines will be fine. Maybe it's time to experiment with the Firestorm detachment. You need a plan for Necrons, but Chaos Space Marines and Eldar getting nerfed is good for us, in my opinion. I think both of these factions getting worse is good for us. And honestly, we have the firepower to deal with Custodes. I beat Custodes in the Index when they were broken, and I think we can still do it. It will be tough, because we no longer have the wound reroll, but honestly, Space Marines were not crutching on devastating wounds anymore. Space Marines were relying on a massive lethal hit, high AP, and I think that's still good into Custodes. Now, if you like this little review of the Dataslate, please let me know. I'll be uploading this VOD to the YouTube, so everyone who wasn't here for the live stream can take a look in the comments. Tell me what I got wrong. Maybe in 2 weeks you tell me I'm an idiot and Sisters of Battle are actually the best army. In that case, I will be playing Sisters of Battle and rebrand the channel. Ultramarines will be okay. We should be good. Courage and honor, Battle Brothers. We march for McCrag.